Welcome back to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your mortgage broker host, Taylor Atkinson.
And I'm your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. What's going on today, Taylor?
News, more news, man. Yeah. It seems to be mostly related on the mortgage industry, which is easy for me, I guess.
There was like a year straight where it was all real estate stuff, but now it's mortgage. Yeah.
So, we've kind of talked about on the previous episode, insured mortgages up to 1.5, down payment structure, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To coincide with that, they're supposed to be coming out middle of November, and basically it is not having to stress test when you're renewing your mortgage. So what that means basically is when your term's up, let's say you're with a lender for a 5-year fixed, when that term comes up for renewal, your lender that you're currently with is going to offer you, hey, here's our today's rates. If those aren't acceptable to you, you're allowed to switch lenders and you don't have to stress test to qualify. Now, previously we could always do that, but you had to stress test that extra 2%, which kind of gave the current lender the monopoly over your mortgage because a lot of people had a hard time qualifying. So not that those lenders use that to their ability, in a negative way, but sometimes they just had higher rates than other lenders. So it wasn't great for the customer. So it opens up that opportunity now.
So basically allows you to rate shop at renewal.
Yeah.
But if you went to another lender, you'd have to get requalified to go to another lender.
Yeah, you always have to requalify if you're going to a new lender.
Yeah.
If you're staying with the same lender, generally they're never.
So I guess my question on this is why would I go through all the requalification process and just use the same mortgage? Why don't I just refinance? I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to lengthen out their amortization or to take on extra debt, So that's one thing that they haven't really disclosed is, some mortgages have like a home equity line of credit associated to it, or like a revolving home equity line of credit.
Yeah.
You pay down your principal and the access to that HELOC grows. So they haven't really said how that's going to work. I don't think that would be a straight renewal because as soon as you start to refinance, it's accessing extra equity and they're probably not going to do the renewal based on that. So you will have to stress test if you're refinancing. To put some more context in this, insured mortgages, less than 20% down CMHC, you could always switch lenders without having to stress test anyways. So they're just kind of opening it up to everyone that has a standard mortgage now. So it's just better for the client, gives the client more power.
If somebody wants to do that, do they talk to you? Like talk to a mortgage broker to do that?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So, we saw this a lot maybe a year ago. There was a couple lenders that had substantially higher rates than, most of the lenders, just in terms of how much capital they had to deploy at the time. So maybe they're 0.5% higher than, the best option, but we couldn't move that client because they just could not qualify using the stress test because rates were so high. So now we have the ability to move them over easier. It doesn't mean, they're 100% guaranteed to qualify. It's just we're shaving 2% off the qualification rate.
Gotcha.
So, today we brought on Ashley Ramsay on the podcast. She was BC United, and then obviously we know what happened with that.
She got falconed.
She got falconed, yeah. So she's an independent, lower mission riding. And we kind of talked to her in depth of her background, mostly in the tech industry and entrepreneurship, what she's going to try and, advocate for Kelowna specific to our municipality. So
I think she's right about doing this, but pushing that benefits of having a independent candidate in the legislature. Because when you don't have to toe the party line on every vote, makes a big difference for the local riding that they're in, because you can really advocate for lots of things. And this election is supposed to be pretty tight with the NDP and Conservatives. So having 3, 4, 5, 6 independent MLAs there, and one of them's in your riding, that could be a huge boost. I think the Okanagan is in this, we're in a great position to take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, it seems like the majority of the independents are based in the interior, which
seems like that. Yeah. Maybe that's just because of our bubble, but it seems like that.
Yeah. Well, I think previously we were more of a BC United liberal geographic area anyways. So, awesome to have her on.
Yeah.
Election is imminent. Election will be probably 9-10 days away once this airs. So do some education, get out, vote.
Look at our back catalog. We've had quite a few of the candidates on. We've had Steve Johnson, Ashley. We had, Loyal Wildridge. His episode was awesome. He talked a lot about his policies too. So it wasn't for the campaign, but I think it'd be pretty perfect to listen to for this.
Yeah.
And then we also had on Ben Stewart. He's no longer running, but he was a longtime BC Liberal and then United. So his points were probably still valid for the candidate there. The podcast is keeping you in the know.
Yeah, this should be our end of the political run.
Yeah.
We're getting pretty deep in it. And
Yeah.
we don't want to go too deep on that stuff, but it's really relevant information right now. And yeah, we think we'd be doing a disservice not to be talking about it openly. So
Yeah, well, because government has played such a major role in the real estate. Like since we started this podcast, Taylor and I were joking that every week we have different news to do, different laws, different like rule changes and all these things. And like, this is all because of your government, right? So like, and so we're talking to these people about why and what's happening and all this. So like, yeah, we don't like to get super political, but like, you got to ask the leaders what's up.
yeah. And we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And we're doing it nonpartisan. I think we got to give ourselves a pat on the back. We've been doing pretty good at that.
Yeah. I'm sure other people would say differently, but
yeah. Every show sponsored by Century 21 Assurance Realty, the best brokerage in the Okanagan. Not just in the Okanagan. Century 21 Assurance Realty is moving into Vernon. We've already had a presence there, but we're opening up an office in Vernon. We're opening up an office in Kamloops, Salmon Arm, Castlegar, maybe even further east in the Kootenays. Like we are really expanding in the interior of BC. So if you are an agent looking to join an up and coming brokerage in your area, we are growing. So reach out. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you. And if you're a home buyer or a home seller looking for an agent, Century 21 is coming to your town. We're going to be there and we're going to be a big presence. So that's something I'm going to be personally working on in the next while. And it's a big deal. We're growing. Stay tuned with that.
I love it. Yeah. All right. Enjoy the show, guys.
Enjoy the show.
Okay. Welcome to the show, Ashley Ramsay. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
Guys, thank you.
I saw more than a dozen of your signs on the way here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
Yeah, we're still rocking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out there at night. We always go out at dark so no one can see us doing it because it's super embarrassing. And now we have a whole crew, so it's good.
It's funny. You're talking to a realtor who has to put up open house signs all the time. I find that the most embarrassing thing.
I find it really humiliating, but anyway.
Yeah. I guess you just have to
it's
do it.
It's weird.
Right?
It's like, here I am. Yay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Taylor, what's your most humiliating thing you have to do?
This podcast. This is out of my comfort zone for sure.
I love it.
Okay, well, how we like to start our show is just you connecting with our listener. What's kind of your perfect Friday? What gives you energy? What makes you productive? And then what do you do for fun?
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, if I can start my Fridays later, it's better. So never do I schedule anything before 10:30. That's why I'm here today at 10:30.
Nice.
So we try to take it a little easier at home. And typically, if the kids are pretty toast, every few weeks, we'll just give them a hall pass on a Friday. But I wake up and I'm usually caffeinating outside. Doesn't matter if it's winter or summer. I go out to the front deck. I love the fresh air. And I'm actually super addicted to my greens, my AG1 greens. Sorry, they didn't sponsor today, but
I wish
I've been on the AG program for a few years, so that's part of my habit. And then, I'm not any like a workout meditative person. That's my evening. So I'm more like hot yoga at night in the evenings, not any activity in the mornings. I like a big warm blanket and a nice big coffee.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You got to get your stretching in before you're out doing your signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So funny. Aww.
Awesome. Give us a bit of a background, kind of coming up in the entrepreneur style and where you're at now, like a bit of a summary, and then we'll dive into it from there.
Yeah. So I would always say that I was a born entrepreneur. I mean, I always had like little flower stands at our farm where I was growing up, and I would always run a little shop on our deck. I would get all the Campbell's soup cans and like pretend I was selling them and play teacher and all this stuff. I was always like wanting to do things by myself. So I grew up like that. So it was always innately driven to just do my own thing. But I did pursue a Bachelor of Arts at University of British Columbia, later ended up getting into animation and worked my way up to executive producer, and then went back to my entrepreneurial roots actually when I had my first child. So I had been producing animation, and then we had Addie, and I ended up creating a baby product business actually out of the need to have like kind of a different kind of splat mat for her. So I had started that business. And then prior to that, Todd and I had bought a home that was like 100 years old and we were renovating it. So we did the whole house blogging thing, and that was super fun. So I've always been naturally inclined to do my own thing. And fast forward, this is like super Cole's Notes life story right now, but we founded Yeti Farm here. Todd and I moved back home, and it was all about like creating jobs and how could we bring what we knew back to the community. And his dad had started the first legal practice here in the 70s, Porter Ramsay. And so for us, it was really important to sort of like carry a legacy. Like it was more from the heart space of service to bring back something in Kelowna. And we thought, wow, what an opportunity. Club Penguin was booming and stuff. So yeah, we started in our basement here, and 175 employees later, we had grown our business to a large animation studio here. And we created Hotel Transylvania, the series, Pete the Cat, Max and Ruby. Lots of great titles have come out of Kelowna. We created some of our own intellectual properties. Yeah, we made the whole second season here. So when you're on Amazon Prime, that's made in Kelowna. It's pretty fun. And then we sold that in December. And, you know, I've always, like I say in these interviews and when I'm speaking about this mission that I feel like I'm on, it's always been about service for me. Like at the core value, my grandmother always said, like, you should always be giving back. And that just really stayed in my purpose. I had been working on government boards for 10 years. And so that was sort of preparing me, I guess, for this like role that I might be going into in government. And so when the call came in May and we had a family trip booked, I had a couple days to get my 47-page crazy document in, and I did it. We got a call when we were away, and they were like, yeah, you're nominated. And I was like, what? Okay, here we go. So I've been campaigning since June, and I just say it's been the absolute joy of my life. Like, and I say that with such conviction and passion to the point where I have to hold back the tears. Like communicating with the community in this way, it's just such a heart opener. Like I was just speaking with the father of the teen who just had that horrible incident. He called my cell phone just now, and you know, it's quite a calling, this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to start crying and gushing, but it's been a great journey. So win or lose, I've won.
It's okay if you do. Matt and I cry on the show all the time.
I'm a super like real passionate person. So sometimes I get a little like into it.
Yeah.
Well, we can obviously sense like your reason behind, you know, wanting to continue to run. Clearly, like we had Steve Johnson on a couple episodes ago. So you were with BC United Party. Yeah. Obviously, everyone kind of knows what happened there. So now you're independent. Can you kind of tell us about your position now? Like we briefly spoke about it with Steve, but you're feeling pretty optimistic in terms of like when and if you get elected, hopefully, then what voice will you have in Victoria?
Nice. Good lead in there, because it's a pretty awesome situation. And I think this is kind of the bomb drop for British Columbians. Like they're slowly realizing this amazing opportunity we have right now. So we're in this sort of historical moment where in British Columbia, we've sort of netted out with these sort of two parties, right? If you will. Whatever you want to say about what happened doesn't matter. We've been left with two choices. And BC born and raised, I don't know about you guys, but like it just didn't feel right. Our values are like heart on the left, pocketbook right. We definitely want to balance the budget, but we have social conscience, right? And we're intelligent, and we do believe in climate change. We live in the Okanagan where there's fires all the time, and we do care about kids not getting bullied for what they want to believe in. And, you know, all these things that kind of got swept out under the carpet. And then with the NDP going forward with all of their policies, it's just left like this, you know, I hate, like, I'm not a mudslinger because that's not my vibes, but NDP is not the right choice for British Columbia right now. We need to get out of where we're at with the $107 billion deficit. So with regards to the independents, we are now realizing how powerful this is going to be. So in a community where you have an NDP and a Conservative, typically the conversation will go like this. Well, we just want the NDP out, so we're just going to vote for a Conservative. I don't even care who that person is. And then you kind of start talking about it and you're like, okay, but if you're voting for the independent in that community, you're still a vote away from the NDP. But guess what? That independent doesn't have to vote alongside his or her BC Conservative party. And typically what will happen is if you're in a party, in most cases, you are voting along with the party. So you're towing the party line because they need a certain amount of votes in the ledge. But as an independent, you're actually going to control that vote, and you're going to be able to provide information to some of these policies that are being put forward that are specific to our community in order to win our vote. So we become kind of like the kingmakers. So it's like, if you guys want that power plant or whatever, like, I guess he's talking about doing a nuclear power plant somewhere. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a really darn good chance that's not going to happen down on the coast. So is that going to be in the interior? Because if it's going to be in the interior, like, damn, that independent, those 3 or 4 seats that we have in the Okanagan for independence are going to stop that nuclear power plant. Again, I'm going pretty extreme, but like, this is in the news, right? I hope that kind of illustrates that, if you're voting for an independent, you're actually getting a stronger vote. So not only are you taking that seat away from the NDP, but you're actually putting in a seat that has a voice that can actually vote for what we need in each community, not what just John Rustad needs for his party.
Yeah, totally. Like if anyone hasn't yet listened to Steve Johnson's, like listen to that because we summarized it quite a bit in there too. But you're really focusing on one thing, which I think is important, is like Kelowna specific needs. Like, and maybe it's just Matt and I and like the real estate agent industry, but the last 2 years, it seems like provincially, there's been a lot of kind of blanket policies that don't fit Kelowna.
Absolutely.
And I know speaking with you a little bit before this, like Kelowna feels a little flat right now for whatever reason. And we are such like an entrepreneurial based community with tech sector, which like, thank you. You obviously added huge to that and Club Penguin and all that kind of stuff. Like moving forward, ideally, like what would benefit Kelowna specifically in terms of like, how do we get our vibe back?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get the economy going like locally again?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get like the real estate market fair and balanced? Like these are obviously like very tough questions, but yeah, like
Yeah,
what are the first, 5 things you're going to do in
Save the
Kelowna?
world.
Yeah, exactly.
Ashley, what are you going to deliver under the Christmas tree this year? Okay, look, so there's a lot, right? So there's a lot from mental health addictions, like there's all of those social issues, and then there's the economy. And so my approach is sort of entrepreneurial. So I think like the block and tackle approach. So when you're in a big company tackling many issues, which I do see the province as sort of a company, I see it as a business, right? Like that's how I see it. So what first, right? What's the foundation? So I do believe in personal tax cuts. I fully support that. With BC United being announced for up to $50,000, you wouldn't pay taxes. Okay. So, but I actually think it needs to be a bit higher. So when we get down there and there are any discussions of that, fully thumbs up to that. We have to kind of stop the bleeding. I think people need a breath right now. I call it BC needs a breath. And the same goes for business. So once you do that tax cut, and I'm just talking about one little area here, that's kind of the foundation of the lift. And then I'm going to get into tech and business. So the second thing that'll start happening is, guess what happens when people have money? They spend it, right? And so our restaurants super struggling after this summer, right? And I think like once you get people feeling a bit of a breath, it's called the vibeonomics. There's actually a new term around the vibe economy. We're having a vibe right now and it's not a good one. Everybody's a little bit like, like I don't want to spend money because I'm nervous that there's something going to be around the corner and then what's the next shoe that's going to drop. So let's just ease that. Okay. Then we deal with this fuel tax, the carbon tax. So, I think we need a lot of discussion around that too, but ultimately we need to remove that in some capacity. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have enough information and I'm very clear about that, but I do support a lot of these breaks. Once that starts happening, people have a different vibe and now they're out and businesses are feeling a little like looser and they're more successful. In business, I do feel like with the implementation of increase to the minimum wage, increase to the sick days, that was all sent to them from the NDP government. Like there was nothing of a give back. So business was told, well, you have to increase your minimum wage within, I think it was like a few months, don't quote me, but it was really quick, like turnaround. So not only is this business struggling, but now they've got to pay more minimum wage, which I totally support paying minimum wage. But if the government is implementing that to a business, then they need to give the business something back. So I think something around a tax credit of some sort over the next couple of years to help just offset that cost that they've had to undergo. The sick days are another one. I agree with giving people sick days, but again, what are you giving the business back in exchange for mandating that, right? We have what's called the Small Business Roundtable. It's called the BC Small Business Roundtable. It was implemented about 13 years ago under the Ministry of Small Business and Red Tape Reduction Ministry. What a concept. Where did that ministry go, right? And that ministry turned into the Jobs, Economic Development, Innovation Ministry, which has nothing to do, like they don't do any work with small or micro businesses at all. It's mostly focused on tech from what I've seen working on these boards. And so some sort of a reorganization to give micro and small business some attention. Thank you very much, which means potentially even a small to micro business tax cut. Like, I don't want to promise anything, but that's where my head's at. Like, we need to give everybody a bit of a breath. And again, pilot programs are great for that, right? So you can do 2 or 3 year implementation of these things just to kind of get people going again. And then, the interest rates are going to start dropping, right? So I think just today I was listening to a podcast that by next February, they'd be down a whole point. By next summer, maybe down to like those 2s or 3s. You guys are in the business. And I'm like, yes.
Aggressive. Yeah.
So I'm feeling good that like by next summer, maybe we're breathing again. Like, look, I could sit here for hours and we could pound out policy, but I think we need these small, quick tweaks, like quick little ones, just to kind of get the things moving again. And then, of course, like our industries, LNG is a big one for me. I think once we get that fired up, that's going to be selling LNG product across the world, which then is revenue for the province, which we can then reinvest into green energy solutions, right? And you've seen that in California. That's what they've done. That's a bit of a longer road, but I do think we need to find ways to generate a lot of tax income into the province in order to get this budget balanced out. There's a whole bunch of other things I could go on and on about, like rejigging the whole healthcare system. We've got 74 vice presidents there, each earning $300,000 a year, whatever they're earning. There's like a whole bunch of fat in there. And then we've got $4 billion contingency, like, so once Steve and I are in, then.
Well, I guess if we can take it in like the real estate direction a little bit,
let's do it.
You've had some exposure on your own kind of development side of things. Where are we at with like red tape? Like City of Kelowna is doing a really good proactive job. Like they're kind of leading the province
100%.
in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still really tough to get shovels in the ground and, build, I don't know, not affordable housing, but just build housing in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's been your experience?
Absolutely. So yeah, we do have a piece of land that, well, it's not even a piece of land. We live on a piece of land that we just found out a couple of years ago that there was enough to build 2 residential homes on. So we have been going through the process here with City of Kelowna. Nothing bad to say about the City of Kelowna. They're amazing. Like hands down, super amazing to deal with, super bogged down because there's so much development going on. My experience has been that it is the fees, like the DCCs, the costs to just get your reports done. And then we haven't gone through the permitting process yet, so I haven't experienced that, but I have found it it just takes so much time, right? Because they have so many requirements in your reporting and your geotech and your hydrogeotech and your surveying and all that stuff is just crazy. And then they charge you a few $1,000s for just the rezone application. Like, I get it because they have to pay council and stuff, but it's like, really? Okay. So by the time a developer gets a unit, it's like 30% of the cost of that unit back to the buyer is like just in fees, right? So if we can streamline things into like packaged application products or some sort of innovate, and I know like I went to the infill housing thing a few weeks ago and it was really inspiring to see that City of Kelowna was actually working in that way where you could sort of
I think they have like 4 choices or something.
Totally. Like that was amazing. Like in 2 weeks, hopefully you could like buy a piece of land and here's your templates. And in 2 weeks, you could be ready to put your shovel in the ground. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything like that we can do. Back to the roundtable. I'm a huge supporter of roundtables. Yes, there's some sort of a lobby for a housing roundtable that needs to be implemented province-wide, which I would love to see, which would then bring experts, domain experts, and key stakeholders from around the province to the table in a very formal way and under the ministry responsible, which I don't think is happening because they do operate in a bit of an echo chamber. They don't consult. So I think in those 2 areas alone, we have lots of room for improvement. And then once the rates start coming down, and I actually am one to say, like, as an independent, I love learning and I love taking all the information in and digesting. And so I would refrain from sitting here and saying that I have a whole bunch of great policy ideas because I think this whole area, we need to really rely on what the industry is saying and we need to get to the table really fast once we're all in.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a huge one. Like province-wide, they've come out with a lot of policies that then they have to change their mind like a month later.
Yeah.
Like tendency is just to clear it. Like how obvious
because of
is
this
that?
podcast.
Yeah. We take
and actually
credit.
Question back to you guys and the listeners, like, have they consulted with anyone on these things? I mean, I just don't understand how they come up with these ideas. Like,
well, obviously they haven't, but I think
it's pretty minimal. I know that our board pushes back. We have we lobby back against these things when they come up. So I know that's happening, how effective it is, I don't know. The vacancy went from 2 months to 4 months, then we got it down to 3 months.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. Is that a win? I think that's probably a win.
Yeah. And that's, again, this is going to be how it's going to be. We're going to have to be okay with probably small wins for a little bit because there's so many changes that have to take place across the board.
Like, what's your stance on Airbnbs and what the province and what the city's been doing?
Yeah, I just posted about this the other day and it was a really engaging conversation that came out of it.
Fires
I am
people
a
up.
made in Kelowna, bring it back solution kind of person.
Yeah.
So I don't have the data yet. I was trying to get in touch with the airport authority yesterday to see how our flights in and out were looking for the summer because everyone's saying we've had this huge decrease in tourism, yet I'm speaking to the tourism, Kelowna, whatever, all these organizations, and they're saying, no, tourism isn't down. And I'm like, but it's like for sure.
They're saying tourism isn't down?
Yeah.
It's funny. I've reached out a few times to a few different organizations, Tourism Kelowna, and like no one will come on or share the data with it because
or
they say,
even
like, we don't have anything yet, but it's pretty obvious. You walk down the street.
In the middle of August, I went to Earl's, right downtown, middle of August. It was like a weekday, like 1 in the afternoon or something. We were the only table in the middle of August on probably the best restaurant in Kelowna, like best location anyway.
Yeah.
How do they say that the tourism isn't down?
Right. So
did you get anything from the airport? Or
not yet. I'm just waiting for them to call me back. I'll call them today. But so the Airbnb thing, we need it back in Kelowna because Kelowna is a tourism destination. It is not unlike a lot of the different places in British Columbia, but we just need a made in Kelowna solution. Like we get that there's these huge, roaring, raging parties in these mansions. We get it. Okay, well, let's address that. Can we rezone parts of Kelowna, right? And so maybe it's that we find a solution. The other thing that came back to me yesterday, and this is going to be for your listeners, is that we've got this sort of, I guess, an oversupply pending of rentals coming down the pipe.
There's a ton of rental
and hotels are being built in Vancouver. Like I just read in Business in Vancouver today. So that's new news to me as of this morning, that what we're going to be looking at in the next 5 to 7 years is like an oversupply of accommodation. So if there was any time to open up our market, it would be now for Airbnb.
On that point, so actually we recorded an episode with Wendy Waters. I'll be released in a couple of weeks. She's like director of basically pension funds, like huge data analysis on it. So there's still a massive shortage for like the housing supply, and we need purpose-built rentals, but that's a generic across Canada and BC, but like Kelowna specific, kind of agree. Like if you're in the industry or you just drive down the street, you're seeing a ton of rentals being built, and the rental market Kelowna wise is starting to soften quite a bit. So we are achieving that. Maybe we need to kind of shift focus a little bit instead of just, building 400 purpose-built rentals or just condos. Like we need to fill that middle ground.
Yeah. And I don't see any new mega hotels going in.
I don't think that there's any hotel, or maybe not many anyway.
And I know the city of Kelowna, if they're listening or anyone from the city, I know they are collecting data. And I have spoken to the mayor about this summer because we did do a visit with them when we were with Kevin Falcon, and they said they are in the process of collecting data. So I'm hoping, anyway, at the end of the day, I support bringing Airbnb back in a made in Kelowna strategy. So working with the municipality.
Like the province has their rules for Airbnb, right? That kind of screwed over Aqua and Caban and all that. But what about like Kelowna added their own rules where you can't Airbnb your basement suite?
Yeah.
Will you do any work to push back against the city about that part? Because that's not provincial. That's
Yeah. I think that, again, the Made in Kelowna collaborating with the municipality is a key, right? So we have to work together, and that's going to require some hard discussions. But, I'm a big numbers and a data person. So I want to see it all. I want to see all the data. I want to see the numbers. And I think that's how we're going to have to make our decisions. Like, maybe it's that we have to find a solution for those particular types of rentals, right? Like, why can't we create a custom solution that's different for every kind of different situation? I don't think that's that complicated. From what I understand, that's what we've been allowed to keep is residential, where you live in the home Airbnbs. So
provincially, yes, but in Kelowna you can't. So there was
so I wasn't aware of that.
So there's 498 that were grandfathered in when the rule came in.
Yeah.
So if you had one that was an Airbnb, it could stay. But now a bunch of them have either sold their house or not renewed their license. So now it's like down to like 450. But you can't get a new Airbnb suite in your basement suite. It has to be long-term rental.
You can't get a new business license.
Yeah, because they weren't grandfathered in or whatever if they sold and bought.
So the ones that were grandfathered,
that's really bizarre. That just makes absolutely no sense.
It makes no sense.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
Like if it was already And again, this is like where legislation, like a lot of it just doesn't make sense.
Well, I think the big one is the
Ugh.
volatility in those decisions.
Mhm.
Like it went to public hearing. That was
Yeah.
maybe we had a 5-6 month kind of runway to discuss it, but
Yeah.
the decision was obviously already made.
Yeah, it's already made.
But the volatility being that, yes, someone bought this or a developer is building this, and then we change the legislation. It's like, well, how can we really have any confidence in what government says, to make any decisions? And that's what people need. Business owners, developers, homeowners, like we need a little bit of confidence that what you say is what's going to come to fruition.
Yeah, we've experienced this in many different industries. So, of course, with the animation tax credit, we kind of got this notice in April. So, in the region, this is just to illustrate how the government has been operating in multiple different industries, not just real estate and Airbnb, but in the industry, we have a 12% additional tax credit on labor to incentivize the region to make more animation happen here, which is amazing, right? We create hundreds of jobs. It's millions of dollars back into the economy. It's been great for Kelowna. Send us a memo in April. We're going to be stopping access to the tax credit for animation studios by June 1st.
Wow.
So no notice. There were millions of dollars of bids out there. Done. Fought it with Renee. Tried our hardest. No, we just don't want to have people working from home. We don't think that this is a fair there was no other reason. Law Society. So we just met with a whole bunch of lawyers last week, Steve, myself, and Michael, and they're making changes to our rights to legal representation right now. Across the board, these decisions are being made in the ledge by a government who actually avoids debate and stops debates on these things. Like they have actually, in some cases, not even allowed debate or stopped it or slowed it down on some of these bills. So they're like pushing things through. Now, what's the why? I have no idea. No idea. I don't know if it's because it's just command and control to try and preserve, income or revenue. I don't actually know the answers, but it's really disturbing. Like, how are you supposed to have predictability as a business owner, as an operator, making a plan, like a strategic plan, when you just have the threat of a government changing?
Yeah.
And again, the importance of an independent, right? And so we're not in either party. We can kind of act as an ally against or for the party in those particular moments and fight for what we need. So yeah, I see it as an opportunity for us right now.
I saw actually, I think it was Shane Stiles put out a post on the numbers, and I know we were talking about mathematician before this. Where are we kind of at right now? I think Shane said there was 43 seats, NDP 44.
Oh, yeah.
Where are we kind of polling, I guess,
Yeah. So I can't actually give anybody any kind of confidence in what the polls are saying because they don't even have our names on the website, this poll website.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. I'm so there's 40 people running across the province that you haven't accounted for. So let's just away from the polls. The prediction seems to be that we're going to end up with a bit of a split. So we have 93 seats going down to the ledge. They've added 6 more this year. That's why you hear all this stuff about they're making more room in the legislature. So they're creating more desks and seats because we have 6 new ridings. So they've split the ridings up. So just very layman terms. Okay. So now we have Kelowna Centre, for instance. That's 1 additional riding. Okay. Yeah. So, and that's happened across the province. So the prediction seems to be that it's going to sort of net out 42, 43 with a bunch of seats in the middle, 60.
That's ideal for you guys, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's actual real possibility of this because the math says that of 17 vetted BC United independents, in those ridings, they are the strongest candidate, like Steve and Michael. And, we do have some incumbent MLAs, Ann Davies, Corley Oakes, Mike Bernier, Tom Shapitka. Those are 4 star candidates in those ridings. They will win, as far as I'm predicting. So again, there's 4, 5, 6, hopefully myself, 7, and then a few more. We could have 7 or 10 people sitting in that balance of power, right? And so then you'd have a minority and a majority government and then a bunch in between.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's where Shane's getting his numbers from, I think. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, like Matt touched on before, which was a good point. So municipality wise, we vote for you in this riding, but you're kind of the voice in Victoria. How does that affect Kelowna people then?
Other ridings?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a great question. Myself, Steve and Michael, even Kevin Acton in Vernon and Greg McEwen in Salmon Arm. Similar issues across the valley, right? We've got farms across the valley. We're dealing with the same climate issues, a lot of the same economic issues. We could potentially be or are resource-driven towns, tech, all the things somewhat similar. In that way, all of us have been already working together for the last 6 months. So we have got these fabulous relationships to the point where we're like family. You know, I call up Steve every morning. Now I'm like, how's your day going, man? And we kind of cry and we laugh. And today we're meeting again. So there's a really great relationship and we're all very values similar. Right. And so what's really neat about that is that we're not just papered independents running all over the place that don't know each other. We have already built our relationships.
Yep.
So when we're together down there, Steve, myself, and Michael can band together on a particular policy that would benefit Kelowna or West Kelowna or Kelowna-Mission. And that would be something like, for an example, something for the wineries. We have wineries all through the valley, perhaps not in Kelowna Center, but transportation. That affects all of us, right? This whole announcement of the bridge, like, oh my gosh, that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Like, good luck with that. Neat. But on major issues that affect all three communities at the exact same time, that's where it's ideal because we can kind of bring our heads together in the same values system and say, okay, well, what will work for Kelowna Center versus Kelowna-Mission versus West Kelowna, and then work together on that. So pretty cool.
The majority of the independents, are they in the interior then?
Yeah, I would say we have quite a few here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I would say we're like half and half. And then we've got some up in the north and then some down on the coast too, which is great because the coast is typically an orange coast. And what I think is happening from what we've heard on the doors, are really going political today on a real estate podcast, but the doors are that traditional NDP voters are actually moving more center into our tent because they're sort of disenfranchised about what's going on. So we'll hopefully see some more independents elected down there too.
Yeah. Can I suggest a policy proposal?
Sure.
For you to fight for?
Yeah.
Okay. So the way our RTB goes, we need to allow fixed term tenancies. So a tenancy when you start and there's an end date because we're a college town and also a tourism town. So you have university, we have another campus coming downtown. We should be allowed to have housing where we have students live there from September till end of May or June or whatever. And then Airbnb or like short-term rentals for the summer. Mm-hmm. We also have a lot of people that go down south every winter. So I have clients that are like, Matt, can you introduce me to a property manager? Because we're going to be gone for 8 months. We want to rent our place out. The property manager goes in there and tells them what the rules are. Basically, you could not have a home when you get back because you have a tenant in there that the RTB will never let you get out to move back in. So then now we just have these vacant houses that for no reason, because you can't just have a fixed term tenancy that ends. Yeah. I don't know why this isn't already a thing, but we'll fix a lot of problems.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And again, back to the roundtable and the consultations, like have we got a roundtable on not just housing creation, but maybe more specifically a task force around rental in BC? And it sounds like it's kind of hitting this wall right now. We've given too much. And this is with everything. It's just we're going too far left. It's just too far. Like we need a balance. Yeah. But yeah. And then I think too, like advocacy. So community members, like yourself should be advocating and using your voices to write letters and make sure your voice is heard. And even back to things like change.org, you can distribute these things. They are powerful. We distributed a change.org survey around the animation tax credit. I think we got 1,500 signatures. It wasn't successful. These are the loud voices behind us. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think people really have an opportunity in British Columbia right now in the real estate industry, housing, construction, development, all industries to not just sit and let it happen, really get in there and engage. And I think that's the one thing that if I'm going to promote myself a little bit here, I have a cell phone and I should be using it. Phone me and tell me what you want done and I will answer the phone. And I think that's the difference. We're shifting into a new era of politics where we have potentially real humans going in that aren't interested in being a politician. I'm actually interested in hearing what you have to say because I'm one of you and I'm not in this for me. I'm in this to make it better. Yeah. Truly. And I think that's where we have these independents who have literally thrown our whole lives on the line in this crazy ass type of campaign that is so unsupported and so not even having listing in a polls on a website. We're kind of these candidates hanging around, and that's a huge anyway, so in that alone, it
sucks for you guys, but honestly, it's almost better because it proves the point of hey, we're voting for the person who actually wants to, they're in it for the right reasons. Yeah. So
yeah, totally. And I do feel that way about these people.
It is funny you bring up not being on the polls. I always gripe that. I'm like, nobody ever asked me what I think. And they have all these polls out. So I was asked, and you're right, you were not even on, I guess in our writing it's Dr. Humor, but are you voting
Yeah, it's
conservative,
conservative,
NDP, or green.
Yeah, you
Like,
get, so those are the text messages you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's really awesome is like, don't you love the one you get from the BC Conservatives that you didn't sign up for? Something's going on there. I'm like, I never signed up for the BC Conservatives. So how'd you get my cell phone? Like, really?
To circle back quick, just on the RTB stuff, and
Yeah.
I mean, Matt and I should know this probably more than you, but I want to ask anyways.
Yeah.
Who's driving that? Like, is it the province pushing the RTB or the other way around? Like, it does seem more that like the RTB has more control, or maybe is the province just saying like, hey, this is out of our jurisdiction?
I don't have the answer
It's
on that.
definitely
I
the
need to
province pushing the RTB.
My instinct would say that it would be the province.
Yeah.
But again, like as a real person, I'm super humble by saying I actually don't have the answer to that one, but I think we need to find the answer.
Because they don't really
yeah.
take credit
No.
for a lot of errors in the system right now.
Mhm.
Right? They just kind of like push it and say, oh, like it's the tenancy branch. Like it
But they
isn't.
just
Like,
announced all those new. Remember, we did that episode where there was that one news story where their 16-year-old son moved in and the rent
Yeah.
went up $600 or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Well,
now you can't do that.
yeah.
So like that's a province that sees like the political backlash and then adds the new. There's like, I don't know, was there 6 changes to that?
Yeah. When it benefits them, they take credit for it. For sure.
Yeah.
But again, just to give everybody hope that's listening, here we are talking about a bureaucracy that is dysfunctional for our society. And we're actually presented with an opportunity where we actually can make a significant amount of change using our voices, using
Yeah.
our own advocacy, and through the creation of these roundtables, which I truly believe will be a game changer as we move forward in creating these policies in the ledge, which we used to do with the Small Business Roundtable, right? So, and just to kind of zoom in really quick on that. So what the roundtables do is they gather people from all over the province that are stakeholders. So you would get one from Nelson and Kootenay, all over BC, right?
Yep.
You come to a meeting, it's a one-day thing. It's once every 8 weeks. We used to meet. We'd all come together in person, right, before COVID, and everybody would bring a report from their city. What's going on? What's working? What's not? Stats, recommendations. The minister would be in that meeting listening, the Minister of Housing or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the RTP.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want to provide hope by saying that like that's the kind of stuff that I personally, and I know Steve and I know Michael will want to do. That's the kind of work we want to do is get people back to the table. Right now, there is no at the table communication happening.
Yeah.
And that is because we have a government that does not want to be at the table. And for whatever reason, I can't answer that today, but I do feel that they are a command and control type government, right? And that's just their mindset. So I guess hopefully that kind of provides hope. Like we can implement change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be Ministry of Housing could have its own, you know,
Yeah.
arm's length roundtable.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've proven that they can facilitate a lot of change
100%
like every other week.
in the wrong way.
Yeah. But
Keeping our
Yeah,
podcast
the
on
Law
note.
Society stuff is really, really, really bad. Like
Yeah.
it's scary. And the ICBC no fault insurance has to go too. And
Yeah.
well, seems like you'll be hopefully very busy in the near future.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good thing
well,
I live in the wine region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully my wineries will survive and
Yeah.
it's all good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll lead into our wrap up here if that
Okay.
works for you guys.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what to expect in this. See my face going all red. What's he going to ask me?
Yeah. What's your favorite color? Okay.
That's
If you
funny.
could buy one property in the Okanagan in the next 12 months, what would it be?
Oh, good question. My lots. No. You know what? I do believe that the infill housing, the trajectory for what the changes will be to come, meaning making as much money as you could out of a lot, looks like they're on the horizon. There's going to be some really cool, innovative things coming down the pike in terms of being able to build up a little higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would look for a lot, you know, somewhere down by the hospital or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my vibes right now. Yeah.
I like that.
Or like Todd and I have always chatted about doing like a big piece of land and just creating like a eco, you know, resort type thing where we do like mountain bikes and yoga and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, but I don't know if there's any of that around here that's even close to affordable. So I think at this point, I'll go for the info. Okay, fine.
Your bike track would be very
Maybe like in
small.
Rossland, we'll buy our land for like $200,000.
I think the Shoot Lake Resort is for sale. I think.
Shoe legs. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Let's
that,
do it.
That
Hey,
place is awesome, actually.
Yeah,
We
it's
were up
pretty
there
cool,
this
yeah.
spring.
let's
Yeah.
open ChatGPT and create a partnership right now.
Yeah, that's great. If you could give your 20-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I didn't actually think about this one. I think know that everything's going to be okay. Like I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, and I'm sure we all have, right? And I think you can create a lot of anxiety and a lot of spiral thinking, worrying. So just not to worry, and I'm really working on that right now in my personal development. So
Love it.
Yeah. Well, it must be pretty powerful now. It's you got a lot going on. So
I'm very worried a lot these days. Not really about myself, but the worry of 44,000 of my constituents. No joke.
Yeah. What's your favorite charity, or how do you get back?
Yeah. So lately I've been working with 100 Women Who Care. We have gatherings, I think it's every 6 weeks, and you drop in $100, you show up, and everybody votes for the charity of the night. That's been really fun. I've done some work with mamas. Of course, everybody has. Todd and I do Food Bank and Salvation Army every year. We do hampers for kids. The biggest one we did one year was 14 hampers for families. It was so much fun. Nice. So that one really lights me up. I love like getting all the kids. Like I actually do all the personal shopping for it and stuff. Nice. And I really feel like the kid getting the thing that they want. So yeah, that's where we contribute right now. Awesome. I do a lot of volunteer time, like totally too many hours of volunteer time, but it's all good.
All right. How can Taylor or I or our listener help you?
Okay, great. I would love for everybody to really have taken the message today about the power of the independent candidate. I think it's a big message that we need to get out. Also that they're not voting for Pierre Poilievre. No. So that would be great. And then you can also visit my website if you live in the Kelowna-Mission area. So anywhere kind of Gooshigan, upwards, up Highway 33, that's my riding. It's kind of an odd riding. So just have a peek where you live and then visit ashramsay.com and spread the word, and just really getting the word out about how I'm going to do the best job I can for everyone here from the heart. So yeah. I think that'll be it.
Love it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
a ton of fun.
Yeah. What do we got? Couple more weeks left. So
16 days left. Yeah. And then I'm going to fall apart on the floor and cry or laugh.
Voting is on the 19th.
Yeah. And I guess they've got this new counting process this year that'll be super fast. So they'll have the results completely completed by like 8:15 that night. So
they should export that to the US.
I'm really nervous. But again, like I said, win or lose, I feel like I have won just having experience learning so much more about this community that I didn't know before. And I think that's going to fuel me in my next endeavor, whatever it is, win or lose. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, have a great day. And
thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you guys. Really humbled as always. Thank you.
Thank you.